Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Liberty Radio on a Friday night in covidland. It is Friday, April 25th, 2005, and we do have breaking news tonight.
Breaking news.
That's right. It appears that, can you guys even hear me over that? Can we shut that off? That's way too fucking long.
Asshole!
All right, cool. Coming to us from NBC News, I guess that's the .com version, and I believe this is dated today. Is there a date line on here somewhere? Good Lord. Oh, there it is at the top, yeah. As of 7:66 Central Time, which would have been just about 1 hour ago, literally right after we started Midnight Vultures, I think we were into track 2. Nicotine and Gravy, and this came across the wires. Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent abuse survivors, dies by suicide. The subhead says other Epstein victims credited Giuffre with giving them the courage to speak out. Well, of course. Oh, interesting. There's a Shapiro on the byline. That's interesting to me only. Virginia Giuffre, one of the most prominent survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse syndicate, has died by suicide, her family said on Friday. Giuffre, 41, died in Neergabby, Australia, where she had been living for several years. Giuffre was one of the earliest and loudest voices calling for criminal charges against Epstein and his subordinates. Enablers. Come on, they were fucking subordinates. Other Epstein abuse survivors later credited her with giving them the courage to speak out. All right, so this is what? I guess we're getting the official media eulogy here from NBC News. She also provided critical information to law enforcement that contributed to the investigation into and later the conviction of Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as other investigations by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Quote, "It is with utterly broken hearts that we announce that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia," unquote. Her family said in a statement to NBC News. She lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. Again, I'm not seeing any confirmation of the suicide yet. I'm not seeing any details whatsoever. Continuing the statement from the family. Virginia was a fierce warrior in the fight against sexual abuse and sex trafficking. She was the light that lifted so many survivors. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy that it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight. Was it that? Or did it have something to do with the automobile accident that she was in back in March? Do they even get around to mentioning that? I don't know. We might find out. We're going to get through the whole damn thing. Raised primarily in Florida, Giuffre had a troubled childhood. She said she was abused by a family friend, triggering a downward spiral that led to her living on the streets for a time as a teenager. Well, I wonder if that family friend had any connection to the Epstein network. She was attempting to rebuild her life when she met Maxwell, Epstein's close confidant. Yeah, I'm sure it was just a chance encounter. Maxwell groomed her to be sexually abused by Epstein, and that abuse continued from 1999 to 2002, according to Giuffre. She also alleged that Epstein trafficked her to his powerful friends, including Prince Andrew and French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. Which, wasn't it... No, I'm thinking of Nygaard. Nygaard was the one that procured Melania for Trump. Epstein, a wealthy financier, died by suicide himself in a New York jail, allegedly, in 2019, while he was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. Maxwell, a former British socialite, was found guilty on 5 counts of sex trafficking to absolutely nobody in 2021 for her role in recruiting young girls to be abused by Epstein. Giuffre filed a federal lawsuit against Andrew in 2021, alleging that he sexually abused her when she was 17 years old. Andrew, who stepped back from his duties as an active royal and controversy related to Epstein swirled around him, agreed to settle the case for an undisclosed amount in 2022. I don't think we had heard much out of Virginia since then, had we? He has denied having sex with her, although, of course, everybody knows that he probably paid for that too. Brunel, who headed several, have you seen the man? Brunel, who headed several modeling agencies, was charged with sexual harassment and the rape of at least one minor in December 2020. He denied wrongdoing and, wouldn't you know it, by coincidence, died by suicide in his jail cell in February in 2022 in France, I believe. Better watch out, Pavel Durov. Several months prior, Giuffre testified against Brunel in a Paris courtroom in June 2021. In an interview after her day-long closed-door testimony, Giuffre said she appeared in court to be a voice for the victims and to make sure Brunel was brought to justice. Quote, and this is quoting Giuffre herself, "I wanted Brunel to know that he no longer has the power over me, that I am a grown woman now and I have decided to hold him accountable for what he did to me and so many others." Giuffre moved to Australia with her husband before Epstein's 2019 arrest. The couple has 3 children, but are they going to mention the separation earlier this year? It's amazing what you can find on Wikipedia these days, ladies and gentlemen, because Virginia Giuffre's Wikipedia page was already updated, showing her death. I mean, I guess they got some data troll over at Wikipedia just, scouring the internet for this shit, punching it in as soon as it comes across. Giuffre's brother, Danny Wilson, told NBC News she, quote, pushed so hard to snuff the evil out, unquote, of the world. I'm beginning to wonder if that is a fool's errand. Quote, her biggest push was, if I don't do this, nobody's going to do it, he said, regarding her advocacy. She was in real physical pain, suffered from renal failure, but I think that the mental pain was worse. The Epstein story received renewed attention during the most recent presidential election, and in February, Attorney General Pam Bondi toyed with everyone's emotions and really didn't release anything that we didn't already have in the collection of Epstein-related files to right-wing media influencers who then disseminated it to all of their sycophantic followers. Fact check me. I fucking dare you. Though the release was widely planned for containing information that was almost entirely previously public, the lead up to its release, including concerns about the disclosure of sensitive or personally identifying information about victims, had been a source of distress and anxiety for victims in recent months, multiple victims told NBC News, apparently anonymously because nobody wants to go on the record. Well, yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to mention the separation from the husband or any of that shit. Giuffre's lawyer, Sigrid Macaulay, described her as a dear friend and an incredible champion for other victims. Those who were close to Giuffre said they remembered her as a fighter. Virginia was one of the most extraordinary human beings I have ever had the honor to know, her representative, Denny von Muffling, said. Von Muffling? Really? Maybe Mayfling? I don't know. And Macaulay said her courage pushed me to fight harder and her strength was awe-inspiring. In an interview for a Dateline NBC special on Epstein that aired before authorities charged Maxwell and Brunel, Giuffre urged law enforcement to act. "Take us seriously," she said. "We matter." Well, there are those of us in the world that did take her seriously, continue to take her seriously. And it is honestly a shame to see a life snuffed out so young. Now, for those of you who didn't know, live under a rock, don't keep up with the headlines, I barely remembered it myself. Back on, and we go to Wikipedia for this one. Back on March 31st, 2025, Giuffre said that her car collided with a bus traveling at 110 kilometers, resulting in her going into renal failure. In an Instagram post that day, Giuffre said she had been given 4 days to live. Western Australia police later announced that they had records of a minor crash between a bus and a car on March 24th, but that no injuries had been reported as a result. Her family later said in a statement that a police report had been filed following the accident, and Giuffre, who was banged up and bruised, was subsequently taken to hospital as her condition deteriorated. At the same time, Giuffre was accused of breaching a family violence restraining order taken out by her estranged husband, with a court hearing set for April 9th. Well, that would have now passed. That would have been 2 weeks ago. She later denied violating any such order and added that she would defend herself against his malicious claim. And of course, the final entry on the page, Giuffre died at her home in Western Australia on April 25th. Let's see what the source is on that one. NBC News, the exact same story that we just covered. So there you go. And I'll make sure that the Wikipedia page is also in the replay notes for everyone, so you can get whatever tidbits you can get from it. Very, very interesting that they're downplaying the automobile accident. Like I said, I remember hearing about it when it happened. And I don't remember hearing much about it since. I even remember, I think we were on break at the time. As a matter of fact, let's see. 21st was a Friday, 22nd was a Saturday. So yeah, we were on break. And then that following Monday would have been the 24th. And again, I was watching the notifications and all that shit come across, so nobody would think I was actually online doing anything. Yeah, I know all the tricks. It's not like I just started doing this shit 4 years ago. I've been working with this technology for almost 15 fucking years now. Well, not all of it, but bits and pieces of it. This is just the sum total of my knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine what it's going to look like 12 months from now. But the phone lines are open. If you guys have something that you need to get off of your mind tonight, we are here for you until midnight Eastern on the East Coast. What is that? 9 p.m. On the West Coast, and whatever it is and whatever other time zone you're in, somewhere on this not completely flat but not completely round thing that we inhabit. Who knows at this point? Honestly, I think all bets are off. All bets are off, especially with the proliferation of the generative AI. We're going to start getting into some real serious weird times like we have not ever experienced before on this planet. And I think it's going to cause a lot of real problems that people don't have any good solutions for. It was not a pool that we needed to dive into head first before looking, but here we are. So I guess we just have at it at this point. If you don't know how it works on Friday nights, ladies and gentlemen, the forum is yours. It's not for me. It's not for me to spend the next 2 hours running my mouth about what's on my mind. I get to do that every other night of the week. It's your chance to take over the airwaves and say whatever you want. Hey, We'll even let you show your ass on a broadcast once. You only get to do it once, and after that, never again. So those are the rules. The link to get you in can be found in the Liberty Radio Telegram channel, as well as the Liberty Radio Discord. You do have to be literate with video conferencing software. We can help you. We can hold your hand. We can try to walk you through it. But you have to take all of the final steps yourself and push the buttons and see what happens. You have to be the one to fuck around, ladies and gentlemen.
To find out more, fuck around.
And that's how it works. You dial us up, you call in, and you tell us what is on your mind. We've got just under 2 hours to give you tonight before we have to turn you back out to covidland and wherever you go from here. I don't have a whole lot to say. It's been a long week already. I'm just ready to get off work. So since nobody is going to be brave enough to jump in right off the bat, you guys are always so shy. I don't get it. I always want to get shit done and get it over with, which is why I have probably collected a lot of kick-ass rock and roll albums over the course of my life. You've heard a few of them so far. You're about to hear another one. Is it a top 25 album of all time? I don't think so. Is it a top 25 rock album of all time? Yeah, I think without question. Matter of fact, I'll put it top 5 rock albums of all time. And I'll challenge anybody to fight me on that. Find me 5 rock albums better than this. 5 rock albums that have more raw fury than Clutch was capable of generating all the way back in 1999. And that's before we had Spotify. Oh, such a kick-ass album, too. What's going on, TB?
Not too much. Just hanging out.
Yeah. Let me get you a nameplate up here. What's on your mind tonight, sir?
Well, I guess lots of things. I mean, you know, what's been in the news lately has been a lot of the Pontier. Israel is always a hot topic, right?
Is it?
So I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Even though it sounds like it's old news because they've been playing this game for the longest time.
Oh, dude, this is the game.
Yeah,
This is the great game that all the authors throughout history have talked about. This is the game of geopolitics that we are witnessing in real time.
yeah,
The players have taken their places on the stage and they are moving the narrative forward.
yes, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was just watching Full Metal Jacket with my son, and we were talking a little bit about, in the intermittents, I would mention certain things to him, but the whole Vietnam War,
Oh
right?
wow. Yeah,
That whole
that's a
narrative,
can of worms,
right?
man.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's the game that they play. They play it for a long, long time, and they play the long game, and they wear people out. People get worn out. They don't want to hear it anymore. They don't care anymore. They hear it over and over again. It doesn't really affect them. They just move on with their lives, right?
Well, they've managed to get most people, and I think when
Yeah.
it's always difficult to estimate like what the actual percentages might be because there's so much wiggle room, right? You can't ever really know what anybody else is thinking. You can only make reasonable estimations based on their behavior.
Yeah.
But it seems like they've managed to get, and I'm talking about when I say they in this capacity, I'm talking about the social engineers, like
Yeah.
especially like the people at Tavistock and Stanford Research and MIT and places like that. They've managed to get people to put themselves into such a constrained position with all of the things that are on them that they cannot do, right?
Yeah.
Because of laws, because of social mores, because of religion, because whatever. They've placed all these limitations on the average individual, but most people, like you say, approach their lives on a day-to-day basis. So
Mm-hmm.
they're not zoomed out seeing the picture from 50,000 feet where all the ants in the terrarium are being manipulated by the dude with too much money,
Yeah.
right? They're only seeing that everybody else's situation seems to be about the same as theirs. And
Yeah.
and that's one of the main things that begins to lead them down a path of basically filling their worldview with volumes of logical fallacies,
Yeah.
right? That's what actually gets you down the rabbit hole, in my estimation, is assuming that anybody else in the world is like you. That's the first part
Yeah.
to getting to the point where you've just released all of your agency to some external force,
Yeah.
whether it's a group or a government or military or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the other day I was driving to school with my son, and he was asking about the dollar. And he said, "Hey, Papa, do you think they'll stop using money like dollars?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, they've talked about this. I think it's going to happen this year, but I could be wrong. But they've been saying this stuff, so it's not me saying this. I'm just going off of what they've said.
Right.
So I was telling him these things, and um, he was kind of like, uh, you know, you're just wondering like, why would they do that? And I was just like, well, because they can control us. Now they're going to put this digital system up, to where if I want to go down to go visit some friends in another state, my money digitally attached with my identification digitally attached, I can't spend money in that place. How am I going to buy food? I can't buy gas along the way because they've limited my ability to use, my digital currency. And I was
Right.
like, that's the element of control. And you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to touch on this, is that you know the engineering. You talked about engineering, and Edward Bernays, you know, the master of propaganda
Hmm.
and mass mind control. One of his books that he wrote was The Engineering of Consent. And a lot of the things that we see is they've been, yes, engineering this stuff for a long time. And you know um, I think the ability to see further than that, because one of the things that they also push out is with the propaganda is, oh, we're doing this for the children, like climate change. We're doing this for the children for years to come with climate change. We need to fight the climate, you know. So the mindset is there of parents wanting to protect their children and thinking in that respect or that regard of
Hmm.
for the longevity of generations to come, but it's in a false paradigm. The false paradigm is what they've been giving us about this, the dangers of terrorism, the dangers of climate control, the dangers of communism, whatever it may be, right? They've given us these problems to focus on.
Hmm.
But the like you just said, the issue is your agency. That's what they're going after. And so one of the things that I said to my son, because he asked some other question, I said, you know what, man? I said, when COVID happened, or he asked me, how can they do this, control the whole world? And I said, well, think about this. I said, because he's old enough to remember COVID. And I said, remember COVID? Remember why I left
Oh, if
Maryland?
he's old enough to
Because,
remember it, he probably won't forget it.
well, I told him that. I told him, I said, you know what? We're 5 years past COVID when it first happened. And I said, everything seems like it's normal again. People have forgotten. I said, you know what? I haven't forgotten. I will never forget what they did to me in order to just go buy some milk to put a mask on. I said, I will never forget that. And I said, a lot of people have, you know?
Mhm.
And I said, if they can do that with that event, like, what do they got planned for the future? And I said, you know what, man? I said, when I was growing up in school, I would always ask questions to the teacher. Not because I was being a smartass, but when you hear something told to you, you have to ask why. When it doesn't sound right, when there's the logic, there's some kind of lot. Even kids have this. They have this ability of like, hey, what that doesn't make really. Is that really true? Does that make sense? You have to ask and question why. I'm not doing it. I'm not saying why to be a smartass, but something just doesn't sound right. And I said, I will never, ever do something someone tells me because of a position of authority. I said, never, ever again. No one can ever tell me what to do. No cops, no governor, no mayor, no president, you know, against my will.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way, but that I've always been that way.
Yeah.
It's I don't
Good.
know I don't
Good.
know what it is either, but it has always been that way. I've always been on the wrong side of authority because I just have like a natural ability to see through their bullshit or something. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's been a constant theme throughout my whole life. That's why I dropped out of high school, why I dropped out of
Mm.
college, why until late in my life it was difficult for me to hold a job for more than like 6 months at a time because I was
Yeah.
always coming into conflict with authority.
Yeah.
And the reason being is they would tell me to do something stupid and I would be like, no, that's stupid. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it would just snowball from there.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then, Driz, because, you're a really smart guy, but
I'm not.
when you,
I'm a dumb guy. That's the thing, dude, is I'm not smart. I'm not
yeah,
an exceptionally smart person according to the tests.
yeah. But what I'm getting at is that you have an ability to see things. So in this young age of yours, when you're questioning authority, was it the cereal you were eating? Was it the cereal? Was it the water you were drinking that gave you this ability to like, hey, maybe just think or question some things? Like,
I honestly, if I had to point to anything, I would probably have to give the credit to my family more than anything else.
family. There you go.
Yeah, because the way the world is right now. So I was born in 1974. All right.
Same here.
I'm the youngest of my generation in my family on both sides, as a matter of fact. But just in me, my siblings, and my parents, I'm the youngest out of all of us. My sister was born in 1970. My father was born in, I think, 42.
Okay.
And he served in the army. Didn't go through Vietnam. He was in between Korea and Vietnam, I think.
Good.
But imagine these people have, or like my father especially, my sister to a lesser extent, but my father definitely. They've experienced a lot more of this than I have, right? And these people are not what you would call emotionally stable people. They are not emotionally healthy people. They're actually very emotionally needy people. If you were to give them a clinical diagnosis, there would be a heavy emphasis on narcissism, with a not quite as heavy emphasis on sociopathy.
Now, are you talking about? I'm sorry. Are you talking about your dad and your sister?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Those are the two people that I'm discussing right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this is what their behavior over the course of time that I have known them and interacted with them has led me to believe, because they're both very manipulative people. And if they see that they have an advantage over you, they will exploit it. And they have no hesitation in doing so whatsoever. This is a realization that took me many, many years to come to, right? Because again, as a kid growing up, you're supposed to believe that you can trust your family because they have your best interest in mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, after like the 5th time that dad forgot to pick me up, it made me start to question some things, and that was again like early to mid teenage years. So I'm in what they call the formative stages, and like what I'm being told by my family and what I'm seeing displayed as behavior is not matching up.
Yeah.
So, imagine what it was like dealing with people in school and like the rest of society and all of that shit. It was like, oh, fuck. It's just everything's fucked.
Yeah.
So, but again, over time, it's one of those things. If you, and every human being has the ability to spot patterns. It's not like a special skill or a gift that people are born with. We all do it. It's a natural human ability. We all have the ability to do it. It just gets suppressed through indoctrination.
Yeah.
So once you learn how to spot those patterns, they're very easy to identify.
Yeah.
And you can literally start calling them out in real time. And that's what starts getting you in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, the things you're saying is, when you think logically about what is being presented or what the situation is, you got to be able to rationalize and prioritize things and look at things as in the whole situation.
Yeah.
Now, I may mention this before, but I always like to say this because I think it's so true. I heard one person say this one time, that in this world there's many different types of people, but he's speaking specifically to this. In this world, there's people that see right from the get-go. They see it. Okay. Those are the guys that I would say maybe would be like the sages. Those would be like the Jesuses and the Krishnas and the Buddhas, like those are those guys, the sages, right? Hermes Trismegistus, right? They see it and they're helping. They're putting the information out. Then there's those that don't see what they see when they're shown. I think it's guys like myself. I think it's guys like you. Maybe we didn't, maybe we had to see some things to then recognize, oh, maybe things aren't correct. You know, there are those that see when they're shown. And then there's going to be those that, even though they're shown, they will never see. And sadly to say, I have many dear friends that stopped talking to me after the whole COVID nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But giving them giving them the documents. Here are the documents. This isn't my opinion. Here are the documents about this whole thing. And then still saying, nope, you can't come to the church. We don't want to see you. And, I believe that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally agree with that. I know for a fact that there are some people who have gone their entire lives, people who lived the entire length of the 20th century,
Mm.
and bought the lie, the whole ride.
Oh yeah.
Went through their entire lives not knowing that it was all just a sales pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the other things too that I think really opened my eyes to the true nature of human behavior, more so than doing research into psychology and trying to apply that knowledge in the real world. Working in sales, in what is considered a high pressure environment, 100% commission, where your pay is completely dependent on what effort you're willing to put to produce, right? Being in that type of environment for so long and putting myself into that type of environment for so long, because they're really, if I wanted to make money, I wasn't going to go into the military. That wasn't going to happen.
Good for you.
I dropped out of college, obviously, so I wasn't going to be able to do anything that required a degree. I had to find another avenue. So the avenue that I found was commission sales. And I sold the shit out of a wide variety of products for the better part of 30 years.
Wow.
And what it taught me, like I said, more so than how to use my own initiative and my own drive in order to support myself in this world, more valuable than that actually was what it taught me about human nature in general, and what human beings will and won't accept in a transactional type of environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because in the world of, let's just say, commerce, right? The world of Caesar, okay, your sales commission sales or whatever commission, however you said it, but it's based off of trying to make the transaction happen. And you know this when you talk to people. I'm very sure you talk to people, and you find that there's one little hook in just the conversation. You got them with one little hook, and then boom, you got them. And I believe, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I would imagine that a guy with your intellect recognize that, hey, you know what, this is probably not good, and maybe that's why you left. Not to me just saying that, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but in recognizing that people can be manipulated in such a way, there are those that will take advantage of that, and then there's those that will sound the alarm and be like, man, do you understand how easy this is? Don't do this. Don't fall for that. And so I think there's another set of people that we're talking about, those that will take advantage and those that won't.
Well, yeah, there's two types of people in this world, as I see it. There are predators and there's prey.
Yeah.
If you're not one, you're the other.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with me on that.
Yeah.
Bring me some receipts showing me that there is some other type of person in this world. You're either taking advantage of someone or you're being taken advantage of. That's exactly what I'm saying. I do my best not to take advantage of anyone but myself.
Yeah.
That's how I manage to sublimate all of that. I'm only a predator towards myself or other predators, because I will go after other predators too. I do not have a problem doing that. I'll rip their throats out just as easy as I will my own. Don't have a problem doing that.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up a book right now because that is a very interesting topic that you just mentioned about. Uh, I'm not being able to pull it up, but it was a story about the sheepdog,
Mhm.
and the sheepdog, he protects the sheep. Okay, and this is a famous story within the military. The book is very famous. All military people read this stuff. Something Grossman, but he wrote a book and he's talking about the sheepdog. They're there to protect the sheep. They look like a wolf, but they're not a wolf.
Right.
But they're there to protect the sheep. And so when the wolf comes, you know, that's when the sheepdog comes into play. And so in the military, everyone wants to be the sheepdog. We're the protectors, right? We look like wolves. We have the capacity to kill. We have the capacity to do bad things,
Right.
but we're there to protect. And that's the whole mentality that they try to instill into the military, is the sheepdog mentality. That was
Right.
big. That was big for me.
Yeah. No, I can still see that. And I would probably classify my own behavior in that category as well.
Yeah.
But I still consider the sheepdog to be a predator. Even if it's acting in a protection role, at its heart, at its
Yeah.
core, it
Yeah.
was born a predator. What it becomes could be something of its own choosing. It may choose to reject its nature, its instinct, and become something other than what
Boom.
it was born.
Now let's take this to another level. Remember that book I can't remember the author, but the book Ordinary Men. Okay, the people that want to sign up for the service, they want to sign up for the law enforcement, they want to do these things to protect. But what happens when they get in these institutions that have already been captured is they then too become captured.
That's right.
And so what you're talking about, they still have that nature, and because of manipulation and mind control, they turn it on the sheep.
That's
But
right.
there's those of us like myself. I'm going to say this for me. I have that mentality. Okay, when I recognize that, I stepped out of that altogether. So I think there are other good people out there that recognize this stuff and they step out of it. Then there's those what they were the job that they were commissioned to do was to protect the sheep. When I recognize my nature is still, or my following is still, to protect the sheep. But there are those that they have this nature that originally was to protect the sheep, but they have this killer instinct. And as soon as you can get a hold of that killer instinct, they just want to kill and
Yep.
do, yeah.
Like JD Vance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you still mourning the Pope?
No, I mean, for me, it's just theater. I mean, what are they going to do next? They said a lot of things about the Pope and who he was and who the next Pope was going to be, or all this other kind of, like. To me, I'm watching the show.
Yeah.
I'm watching the show. But what?
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts.
I
What's
have no thoughts on it whatsoever. Like I said, I thought he was dead back at the beginning of the month. Like when he
Mm,
first went into the hospital, I was pretty sure he was already dead, and that
yeah.
they've been stringing it out this whole time. The
Mm,
body that's in there, it kind of looks like him. I know
mm,
that the features change slightly after death, and they use
right.
various things in the embalming process that can morph the look of the face. But
Yeah.
he looked really waxy to me, man.
Really?
Really
Okay.
waxy. Did not
Mm,
look like
okay.
somebody that just died a few days ago.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see it, but I'll take your word for it because I think a lot of this stuff, like you said, he probably was dead way before this. So It's the theater.
Mm.
They're giving us the game, right, to keep us still, as fake as things are. And this happened a couple weeks ago, but it's really funny to consider, like the all woman space capsule or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
As fake as that
Yeah,
whole
the
thing
big show.
was,
The big
the big
show.
show, right? As fake as that whole thing was, and many people have broken this stuff down. Jeff Bezos coming out to this fake looking
Dude, they
thing.
did
The
not
door
even
opens.
try.
The door opens before he gets there. They're like, "No, close it."
I
And
know,
he
push
closes it.
back, push back.
Yeah, and it's like, so as big of a show and fakery as we saw that, people ate it up like that. And then also, then a few days later, they had the shooting down here in Florida at the campus, the
Oh,
college
that's
campus.
right. Florida State. Yeah.
Yeah, Florida State. And when you hear the interviewer talk to these people, they're smiling. This is right after, right? Like they're smiling. People that knew the guy, and the guy's just like, "Yeah, so tell us," and he's just like, "Yeah, my name's Robert, Robter." He spells out his name like totally scripted. The chick is standing next to him, smiling, and then when they turn to her, like, "So tell us about this guy. He was your classmate." She's like, "Oh yeah, I thought," and she like reads from like a total script. It was so fake, but people eat these things up. It takes their mind off of, what they don't want them to see, and it gives them something like it's all a show. And as scripted as this whole thing is, I think even with the Pope and his dying, and we can get into like all the esoteric stuff about that, but I
Mm.
think that's part of this part of it. It's part of the show.
Yes, absolutely. It's part of the show. I think it also had to happen this year as well.
Mm.
Because I know I've heard all the things about the prophecy of the last pope and all of that. Maybe we'll see. Who knows?
Mm.
But I think one of the things that we're going to see this year, and it may very well start with this particular event, is we're going to see a shift in the hierarchy of especially evangelical Christianity, but the
Mm.
Christian church overall,
Yes.
to following the wishes of the now dead Pope and becoming more inclusive, and beginning the full disillusion of Christianity as we make our way through this Jubilee year of 2025. Because
Yeah.
here's the thing: you cannot have a strong Christian faith in the world if you're going to be bringing in the new one world religion where everybody's just spiritual and believing in other dimensions
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do believe that modern Christianity, is such a joke, and it's shifted so much, opening to all of the things that they profess against, right? Like gay marriage, and transsexuals are invited into the church. It's
Mm-hmm.
mixing, and they're trying to break down this principled idea, right, of faith. And I think Christianity is a big stronghold, uh, because it's so worldwide, that they got to break that down. And this is, again, you talked about Bible prophecy. This is part of one of the things that they talked about in the Bible, is
Mm-hmm.
kind of shaking the tree. You got your, like, things are going to get shaken up, and it says even the elect will be deceived. And and I'm talking about elect as elect as people that are in these high positions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're elect, but I think that they're these positions that within Christianity, these Jonah Olsteins and Tammy Faye Bakers and stuff, right? These people, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. And even the elect will be deceived. So, and then they deceive the rest of the congregation.
Yeah. And everyone gets led into darkness.
Yep.
If they were trying to make it look like the biblical story of Armageddon,
Yeah.
what would you do different? Right? It's like they're trying to get all of the pieces lined up into the exact right position, and then it'll just happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess one of the things that I would do different, let's just say within that respect of the big overall, is that we know that back since centuries ago, or probably like the 1800s, the whole Jewish idea of Judaism was used as a mechanism to instill all this stuff. And so once they got that established about this Jewish nation or whatever, these lost tribes of Israel and all this other kind of nonsense, then they get into Christians, because the Christians, following with the Bible, oh, God bless the Jews, and anyone who blesses the Jews will be blessed, all this other kind of stuff. Then they get those guys together, right? So a lot of it, I think, is it's that whole because Jews, they're very stout in their belief. They are the chosen people. Okay,
Well, yeah,
now
it's
that's
drilled.
the
It's
biggest
drilled into their
indoctrination.
heads from birth, man.
Yeah, that's the biggest
I mean,
indoctrination.
you want to talk about indoctrination, dude? It's oof.
Yeah. So I guess
oh.
yeah. So I guess if I could do things different, it would be to in the early 1920s or 1900s, when Zionism was coming into play and establishing itself with Judaism. I guess in a global sense, I would have broken that up. I would have. You have to cut that off right away. And the difference between Zionism and this belief in Judaism, and then associating that with Christianity, because then that just moved over, and that's why they got the whole world in this big snare now.
Oh yeah, and you've got the self-professed Christian Zionists that are willing to sacrifice themselves for Judaism.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that because now this idea that this one world government, or there's people here that want to control one world. Yes. Okay. Now I'm speaking from the Christian Bible. Okay. That has been prophesied in the Christian Bible. Okay. So, what better mechanism? The best mechanism to use would be religion. The spiritual sense of a God, because everybody, when they wake up, they see the sunrise, they see the sunset, they see the moonrise, they see the moonset. They know that there is something there. Then you tell them it's God. Okay. Oh, okay. It's God. Okay. There's a God there. What does he want us to do? Oh, he wants you to do this. He wants you to become.
That's right. Right. The big invisible dude in the sky told me to tell you.
Yeah.
I need half your shit.
Yeah. And you need to do this thing,
exactly.
And all these others are fake. Right. So then that's what ensnares everybody. Right. Is that when they use, I think that the people I'll call them the archons, when the people that are the rulers, right, the archons, when they recognize that they can use religion to control the populace, that was their sole thing. Because laws change from state to state, country to country, county
and
to
era
county.
to era.
Yeah, era to era. But what doesn't change is religion and that idea of spirituality. So when they know that that's the most powerful mechanism, is the belief in a higher something to get these people with. And they've used religion as an enslavement tool.
Yes. Yes. Because if you notice, with the way that religion is practiced in the world, not the way that it's preached, but the way that it's practiced, it's always you're worshiping something outside of yourself.
Yes.
Not something inside of yourself. Because again, if you actually look at the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, he says, I believe it was, Jesus, the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yes.
Like that's the most profound thing that I think he said out of his entire ministry. What that tells me is that each and every one of us, being created in the image of our Creator, carries a piece of that Creator with us on our journey throughout this realm that was created for us to explore or do whatever, to be stewards of, apparently, is what the Bible says, you know.
Yes.
But who knows? Who knows what it was really created for? Because again, Bible was written by the hand of man. It's claimed to be the word of God, but you still can't get around the fact that it was written by the hand of man.
Yes.
And then rewritten many times.
Yeah. Now here's something to consider, because you mentioned Jesus and his teachings. And one of the things that he does say to his disciples, he says, "Are you not gods?" He says that in a question. He asks them, "Are you not gods?" And he also goes on to when he's praying to the Father, he says, "I pray that I am in one as you are within me, and I pray that they are within you and me as I am with you." Okay, so there's this oneness there with the Creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now then Jesus says, he says, "I pray that you don't take them out of this world, but that you keep them from the evil ones." So we're meant to be here. Now we're just meant to be kept from the evil ones. Here's the next thing that comes on in the later.
The evil ones? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, here's the next thing that comes on in the next portion of the New Testament, is that Paul starts writing, and he says, "You are the temple of God." Okay, the temple is within you. Okay, now back in the day, the Ark of the Covenant is what had the Spirit of God inside it. Okay, that's why if you touched it, you would die if you weren't worthy, right? And they lost the Ark and all this other stuff. And just recently, these last several weeks, oh, we found the Ark.
Bullshit.
Like it's a physical thing. Okay, that's to get people off the center of, you are the Ark, you are the temple, the Spirit.
You are the covenant.
You are the covenant. Yes, but this, oh, we found this Ark, takes their mind off of that into putting it into a material, physiological. Oh, the Ark, God is with us now. It's like, no, dumbass. God has been you in the entire time, you know. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. I mean, that's what one of the main tricks is. It's displacement. You know, again, displacing your power onto an external whatever, whether it's an object, whether it's a thought form, whether it's a system, doesn't matter. It's the whole point is just to get you to give it away.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Because there's plenty of people that'll come along and collect it. You know? There's no shortage of those people in the world.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who it was I was talking to. But somehow or another, we got into the conversation of fallen angels and like the whole story of Lucifer and being cast out of heaven and all of that. I'm trying to remember how it was the question was presented. But it was something to the effect of that when the fallen angels were cast out of heaven, they fell down to earth.
Yes.
Where apparently they remained. Like there's no resolution to that part of the story. It just says they fell down to earth. They were never allowed back into heaven.
Yes.
So apparently they're just wandering around on earth with us is one way you can look at it, or another way you can look at it is, oh, man actually is the fallen angel.
Okay. Yeah. Here's a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with the Book of Enoch, but a lot of stuff they explain in the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jasher, the Book of Jubilees. It talks about, let's just say, these what they called the Watchers. Okay, they were the fallen angels, but they were sent here to earth to watch over man. They were called the Watchers. Okay,
right.
And then it says that those actually a really big plan. They wanted to. Now, people don't understand this, but I tell this to some Christian friends, because we were talking about angels one day, and they were talking about male and female angels. I said, well, hold on, wait a minute.
They
in the Bible,
they weren't male and female.
They were only male. The only depictions of angels coming down to earth in the Old and the New Testament are all males. Okay. Now,
I believe you're right.
Now think about this. In the Book of Enoch, it talks about how these angels, they're only males. They cannot procreate. Okay. what was the jealousy that happened between the angels and man is that we could procreate. We were born male and female, so we could make new life.
Right. We could have
The,
progeny.
the angels. Now the Bible says this, and there's only like 3 or 4 verses in the book in the canonical text when you go buy it at Walmart in Genesis chapter 6. There's only like 3 verses that say the angels saw the beauty of the daughters of Eve, and they came down and mated with them. Okay, that's all it says. And it says that
Right.
they had their children were called the Nephilim, men of renown. That's all
Right.
it says. Okay.
Very large.
In the other text, it tells us that again, they took these women, they had these offspring. Okay, these are the Nephilim, the giant people, right, with
Right.
all these different features, right?
Right.
Well, part of that was part of them doing that, and this is what it said in the book, is that they got punished, and then God punished them and said, "These offspring that you had, you're gonna see them all die." Okay, and what is believed is that when they did die, they did see all these, all the children get wiped out. Their spirits still remained, okay, and still
Mhm.
could get into man, and that's where you get the whole story of the rest of the Old Testament of the Israelites fighting off these giants and stuff. Okay, so
Right. Right.
that's
Right.
kind of
Like
what
with
that's
the
what
David and
that's yeah,
Goliath.
yeah. And then so after centuries, after years and years and centuries, the Nephilim, they kind of dwindled away because their bloodline was getting exhausted, right?
Right.
So now again within that, this is what people would probably consider like the 13 families or the 13 bloodlines or something. They believe that they are something different. They believe
Mhm.
they are the gods. Okay, now this could be the spirits of them and why they do so much atrocious things, with all the sacrifices and all this other kind of stuff, is because they truly are, like, yeah, lizard people, as to quote David Icke, lizard people, because they are not like, they have something in them that is not actually human. Now, another thing that they talked about in the Book of Enoch is they were doing gene editing. They were mixing kinds, and that's where all of what is attributed to, all these Greek minotaurs and the Medusas and stuff, is that those were some of the offspring. Does that make sense?
Mm, I, I mean, it makes sense from the standpoint of if you're trying to answer one mythology with another.
Well,
Because
just to
the
say
whole
that, yeah.
time that you were telling me about this, I'm like, man, this sounds exactly like stories in Greek that I know in Greek mythology. Because there
Yes.
are very striking parallels between various
Oh yeah.
world mythologies that
Sure.
are they're inexplicable, like how
Sure.
they could possibly be there. They all had to have come from a common source, or
Yeah.
the only other explanation that I can think of, because I've been looking at this since I was young. Like I fell in
Mhm.
love with Greek and Roman mythology as a little kid, and I mean
Okay.
that never
Mhm.
left me.
Okay.
Um, but all these commonalities between all of the various religions and mythologies
Mhm.
of history
Yes.
had to come from somewhere, unless it's again something that's just like hardwired into us. And these are stories that we have to tell each other in order to make sense of the world around us. Because again, when I was in school and I was learning about this stuff, and even when I was in high school and in Latin class and we were going
Mhm.
through the Roman mythologies,
Mhm.
the way it was taught is that these were the stories that the communities would create in order to explain the natural phenomenon of the world around them, because they weren't
Yeah.
all great and advanced like we were. They didn't have
Yeah.
advanced science, even though apparently they had astronomy and mathematics and all that other
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
But that's
Well, no.
that's part of my brainwashing.
Well, no, and so that's interesting that you say that because yes, there's so many different stories, but they all say the one same thing. The one same thing is that there was a group of individuals that corrupted mankind and have like these demon offspring or whatever. They all say that kind of same thing. Now, I believe that Now, whether these are just allegorical stories that we have to tell ourselves to remind this stuff, it doesn't matter. There is still truth. There is something inside certain individuals that will take them to such high limits of destruction that they just don't care. I'm not that person. I know you're not that person, but there are people that are like that.
Mhm.
Now, where they get this from is some type of spiritual thing that's going on. Okay. Maybe it comes from the fourth, the fifth dimension, the heavens, right? But in this material realm, there is a people that are lizard people. Whether they, I'm not saying that they're changing to lizard form at night or
Right.
something. I'm
Well, you
saying
call
they have this, they have
the
this
lower intellect
mentality.
is
The
the lizard
lower,
brain, the
yes,
reptile brain.
yes, the lowest capacity of frequency and vibration, right? That's who these lizard people are, and they're just like you and I, but they do exist. And now, whether they're true giants and true crazy featured animals, I don't really know, but that spirit, I'm going to say, is 100% true. There is that spirit that exists. Whether it actually took a form like that or not, it doesn't matter because it's there.
So, all right, since we're getting into the crazy big creatures,
Yeah.
what's your stance on dinosaurs?
I don't believe it exists as they told us. No, not at all.
So, and I'm gonna preface this question by saying I've been to the Smithsonian
Yes, I have to.
I mean a bunch of times, bunch of
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
Because again, we were right in the area
Mm,
during school, so we'd
mm,
take field trips like every other year to
yeah.
one of the Smithsonian museums. I've been to fucking Air and Space Museum. I don't know how many times. Like, I can't even count anymore.
Yeah.
But
I
I've
love
been to
to
the
see.
Natural History Museum a bunch of times too, and I've
Oh yeah.
seen all of the big dinosaur bones. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's part of
Some
it.
of those displays are fairly convincing. I will say that.
Here's one thing I'll just say, and many people have done shows on this stuff, so you can always. I mean, the information is readily available out there. Guys have
Well,
covered
that's
this
why
stuff.
I've
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
gone and seen the shit myself
Well,
in
yeah,
real life. Yeah.
but what I'm saying is they've covered the stories that when you actually, because guys have done the research of where these comes from, and when it digs down, is they are made in China. There are no real bone fragmentations in any museum. They're all fabricated. Now, consider this.
So
Okay,
what was the evidence that was presented for that?
people have done the research. They've done research on this stuff.
I
I,
would need to
I,
see
I
it.
yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll send it to you. But now, with that being said, okay, is that let's take the story of Lucy, right? uh the supposed humanoid that was like the cross between man
Now
and
that's
ape or
different.
whatever,
That
but the
I
same
have actually seen evidence on.
okay, but okay, so here's the story is that when you actually look at the bones that were presented and how they put them together,
Mm-hmm.
they could not have made a human being.
Mm-mm.
So
No,
bones were
that thing
missing,
would
so they
not
were
have survived
no,
at
so they
all.
were they and this is what happens with a lot of archaeology is that they will get small pieces and they piece them together and they create their idea. So again, there's
Yeah,
so many
they
bones.
would find bones that were like separated sometimes by miles
Yeah,
and say it came
yeah,
from
yeah.
the same body.
Yeah. So so what I'm saying is like these crazy images of these dinosaur figures or whatever, like they can make that stuff up. All of that stuff is made up because it goes back to, and then again, this goes back to a lot of other people's work. Piltdown Man, Piltdown Man. When you look
Mm.
at the who Piltdown Man was, it was like two different guys, two different archaeologists trying to claim like the next big thing. So they made this story up. There was this rivalry. Like it's well documented that the whole idea of archaeology and dinosaurs and stuff happened off of that little beef that these guys had.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I mean, there was no such thing as archaeology prior to the 19th century. Not really. Not as we know it. Like there's always been collectors who like to find ancient relics and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like a profession, no.
Yeah. You know who's done really good work on this is Crow 777. If anyone goes on Crow 777 site, you can look up just say type in dinosaurs, and he's got so many good podcasts on the dinosaur issue that he's got all the information. I don't really know the information readily at hand. It's been years since I looked at this stuff, but go to the website and look that up, and he has all the sources and sites and stuff. So
I don't know. I'm still on the fence on it.
okay.
I'm not willing to go one way or the other. I still think it's possible that there may have been. Well, I mean, obviously there were larger forms of animals that we have today.
I think so. Yeah.
You know, if we're to believe that carbon dating is a real thing, which is, you know, again, kind of a coin flip of a proposition at this point. The conditions on this planet have not always been as they are right now. They have been different, and different conditions are going to produce different types of fauna and flora, right? That's just simple ecology.
Yeah.
So I think it's entirely possible that there were giant lizards that roamed on the planet at one point. I think it's even entirely possible that man would have coexisted with them at some point.
Okay.
You know, it's our history and what we're told it is. And again, it's not the first time that I've said this, so it's not going to shock anybody. But I don't think it's anywhere close to what has actually transpired in this realm over however long we've been here. Again, the fossil record seems to indicate that we've been in our current form for about 1 million years or so.
Okay.
You know, give or take 250,000 years.
Yeah. And here's something to think about too, like just from what you said, as far as like your history, right? Remember that book that was like dude wrote the book called Adam and Eve, I think, and the CIA supposedly classified it and took it off the market, so you can't buy it or something like that. They so indicating like, oh, this book is releasing secrets now,
right. Something they don't want in the public.
Yeah, but now you can get it, and I've downloaded it and I started to read it, and when you start listening to some of the stuff, it's just fantastical. You know, they say things that I think it's meant to divert people's attention to something else, and it gives that idea that history was this thing and the earth was created this way and people formed this way. So I believe that they're using a lot of this stuff to deceive us on our true origin.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that they would tell us our true origin for any reason whatsoever. No. Because again, if you can keep people completely blinded to their true nature, you can get away with murder. You can literally get away with murder. Because if you're controlling what a person believes, they're done. They're absolutely done.
Yeah, and they do control us that way.
A lot of us, not all of us, clearly.
Not all of us. Yeah,
but a lot of us, it's they control enough of the population especially through the belief systems, that the people who are on the fence about whether any of it is actually true or not, aren't going to get out of line because they know the consequences are going to be coming from the true believers. Yeah. Right. Again, back to the 3 types of people. the people who can see, the people who might see, and the people who will never see.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same concept, but
Yeah.
it's what this system creates.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, but I do believe that we are ascending. I do believe that now people are starting to wake up. Um, again, you watch these shows that they put on for us, like the travel to space and the shooting, and people are starting to recognize, like, hey, this looks just fake, and they're actually trying to cover things up. I think by coming out and saying, like, oh yeah, COVID was a thing, like Trump's got his website up for that because they want people to still believe that they're fighting for them, right? But they're not. And
Yeah, well, again, it's the true believers. Doesn't
yeah,
matter. You can feed them whatever pablum you want to, and they're just going to gobble it down.
yeah,
Because that's what a true believer does.
yeah,
That's also why you see cult behavior so
yeah,
prevalent in the world.
yes,
Especially once the fracturing took place with the scamdemic, the fracturing of people's
yeah,
psyches, right?
yes,
The
no,
first thing that everybody did was scramble to find a group to belong to because they were among the people that we interact with. We were all being ostracized by
yeah,
all of the normies, right? Because
yeah,
we weren't adhering to the program.
yeah. Now here's something I'm gonna get a little bit biblical with you, but but it's a good story.
I
So
can
now here,
handle it.
all right, now so check this out. So here's the story about, let's just say, with religion, especially Christian religion. It's all based on faith. Faith. Okay, now ask any Christian, they'll say, the the prophet of faith, and they'll all say Abraham, because that's what the Bible says. Okay, so Abraham, they based Abraham for being attributed with faith. He left his country to go seek a new country. Okay, Abraham is attributed to faith. Now, faith, right? The belief in something, right? The stories that about Abraham that have been kept out of the Bible, you won't find this in the Walmart Bible, the canonical Bible that you buy at Walmart or Amazon. Okay, but in the other texts, in the book of Enoch, in the book of Jasher, in the book of Jubilees, it tells the story of Abraham and why God chose Abraham. It's because Abraham saw the sunrise and saw it set, and he's like, "Oh wow, God must be the sun." So he started worshiping the sun. But then the sun set, and he's just like, "Oh, the sun's gone. It can't be the sun." He sees the moon rise. He's like, "Oh, wow, it's the moon. I worship the moon. The moon is the creator of all things." But then he sees the moon set. And then he recognizes that the sun and the moon are agents of the Most High. He recognizes there is something above that. That's
Right.
true faith. Faith, not in a doctrine as Christianity is today, but he had faith in nature. He saw it. He saw nature. And that is true science. And that told him there is a God.
Well, I think I've always liked the way that the deist, um, what do you call it, derivation of philosophy has kind of presented it. The nature of what we can observe in the world around us indicates that there must have been a creative force involved.
Yes.
Because of the processes that
Yes.
we can observe, things like celestial mechanics, things like temporal
Yes.
cycles.
Yes.
Those would appear those would appear to be intentional design elements. In order
Yes.
to have an intentional design element, you have to have an intention which is generated by an entity.
Yes.
Intention doesn't just manifest all on its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why I still consider myself a Christian. I have Christian faith and beliefs, but I'm I'm uh yeah, I'm very spiritual. But so Hermes Trismegistus. Now, when you read the Kabbalion, okay, and the explanation of the Kabbalion explains the seven hermetic principles, okay, and
So
all
do
of
the
those,
Emerald Tablets.
yes, and all
And
of
I have
those
actually read the Emerald Tablets.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of those things, a lot of those principles, you find them directly in the Bible. And actually, Herman
Hmm.
Trismegistus actually quoted the Bible, okay, because there's truth there. Um, now, as far as uh, fuck, I forgot what I was talking about. What were we getting at? As far as um,
Well,
what was your last point, Driz?
my last point.
Yeah,
Shit, I don't remember. I'm high.
yeah. Sorry about that.
We
I
just keep
messed it up.
flowing. Well, we were
Yeah.
talking. You were talking about Hermes and the Emerald Tablets and parallels to the Bible,
Yes.
and
Yes. Oh,
actually
wait. No.
quoting the Bible.
Yeah, now here's another thing. Now, you guys remember Bill Nye the Science Guy, right?
Right.
He does an interview one time where he actually they're interviewing him and they're talking about him, and he says this in a very solemn voice. His demeanor changes, and he says, he's like, the Earth is an enclosed system. He's like, you cannot leave this place. He's like, it's an enclosed system.
Hmm.
Okay, now what he's talking about is, I believe he knows the truth, and he knows that based off of hermetic principles, hermetic is an enclosure, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Completely
here,
sealed.
yeah, here in this third dimension of time, space, and matter, okay, in the third dimension, okay, here's where we exist. In these upper dimensions, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, where there's energy, there's frequency, there's vibration, it goes up. Like, however, whatever created this thing, this is what we know here in this third dimension.
Right.
The heavens, the heavens govern the earth. Okay. And this is what a lot of the
Hmm.
as above, so below thing,
Right.
as above, so below. All the occultists know this because it's a reality. These other dimensions of energy, frequency, and vibration, what we see in the sky, even the Bible talks about this. The sweet influences of the Pleiades. It calls it the Mazzaroth, the zodiac. Even the Bible references the influences that we get from the luminaries in the heavens.
Hmm.
Okay, so they govern the earth. This is the way it goes. And so when, and again, this is going to cross paths with the traditional Chinese medicine. They believe, and I believe that I mentioned this before, there is the corporeal soul. Okay, that which comes in, the soulical aspect, this spiritual thing that comes into me, that belongs to the earth. That's the Po. The Huen is a heavenly spirit that is supposed to, according to traditional Chinese medicine, enter the body after 3 days of birth. That is the etherical spirit that
Hmm.
doesn't die. When the Po gives its last breath and returns to the earth, the Huen goes back up into the heavens. Okay. And so I believe that when we die, it's similar to that. The corporeal soul stays in the earth. That's why people burn ashes. That's why they bury them in the dirt. But the Huen, okay, the spirit goes into the next dimensions.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense because I think we've actually had this conversation before,
Oh
and I
yeah,
think
we
I've
did.
pointed out before that it sounds a lot like what Rudolf Steiner proposed,
Mm,
like back almost 125 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, that there's a companion soul that we carry with us throughout life that joins us when we're born and leaves us when we die,
Yes.
and that's where our internal dialogue
Yeah.
allegedly comes from.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I have a difference of opinion on many people who believe that this is like a soul trap, and that when you see the light, like, don't go towards the light because it's a soul trap. They want to keep you here in this cycle of energy
Right.
and stealing your loose and shit, and these people are now pumping out that if you don't go towards the light, then you want to leave this place. Like, this is torture. It's hell. I don't want to get reincarnated back into this life. I'm not going towards the light. I'm going back to where they don't want to get reincarnated, right?
Right.
Now, that's the difference of my belief. Even in these past several months, several years, is that I love life. I love being here. And there's days that suck. bad. There's days where I tell myself, like, man, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. But I go outside and I look up at the sun and I think, like, damn, I love life. And it gives me a different outlook. It gives me a different perspective. Sure, there's difficulties we're going to have in this life, and I'm going through some of my own right now. But I love my wife. I love my kids. I love them playing with the dog. Like, I love life. Like, I love this place, you know? And this is the place where I think, in that spiritual aspect in the upper heavens, you can't experience that unless you come to the third dimension. I believe that it's a blessing for everybody to be here. And that if we look at, again, aside from all the attacks that we're getting, look at life as something to look forward to, I think that things would change and people would have a better experience here down in this third dimension.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we already know that your mentality has a lot to do with your reality.
Yes.
You know, what you actually think of the world is projected out
Yeah.
into the world, whether folks realize that or not.
Yeah.
You are a willing participant in creating your own reality.
Yes.
So as long as that's the case, at least this is the way I figure. As long as that's the case, I might as well make it something I enjoy, at
Hell
least,
yeah. Hell yeah.
as opposed to just being miserable every fucking day and having to give all my time away to everybody else to do shit for them.
Yeah.
You
Hell
know?
yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
can't ever see myself going back to working a job.
Good.
I
Same here.
can't. It's
Same here. I'll never work for anybody else.
yeah. I mean, I'll still work for other people, but like
Sure. Yeah.
I can't ever see myself going back to something where like I'm having to punch in and punch out.
Yeah.
I'm getting an hourly wage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have to deal with HR and benefits and like all of that garbage. No, I've found much better ways to make money, in order to feed myself and provide the necessities of life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't ever want to go back to that. That is actually what I consider to be slavery. Well, that and paying
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Yeah.
I wish there were
Um.
more of us, man. I wish there
Yeah.
was no workforce.
Yeah.
It's like the question that I've asked forever. What would happen if they held an election and nobody showed up to vote? What would happen if nobody showed up to work on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'd still find ways to feed myself.
Yeah.
I'd still find
Yeah.
ways to generate power.
Yeah.
I'd still do all the same things. I might do them differently,
Yeah.
but my life wouldn't change if nobody showed up to work on Monday. Not significantly. It would take a while for it to change significantly.
Well, no, and think about what you're saying. Like in this system of commerce, in this is what the Bible calls it, the world system. The Bible says this: there is the earth, and there is the world. Okay, the earth is not the same thing as the world. The world is what is, when you see the world come up in the Greek in the New Testament, it's cosmos, the world system. Okay, so there's two different things: the earth and the world. Now, we operate in the world of Caesar. So it's like you have to get a job in order to do this, in order to buy milk, in order to do whatever. You have to use this currency to go buy these things. That's now the system of commerce. If just in local areas people had chickens or goats, or gardens, they could just exchange and commerce would happen just naturally,
Mm-hmm.
without an oversight telling us, whoa, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and separate it. And now you got this system to where people can't even provide for themselves, right? So
Yeah. No, there are people that are completely dependent. There are people that are completely dependent on the government to stay alive. You
well,
have
yeah.
no idea how much it pains me to say that. but there are people in this country right now, in the United States of America in 2025, if they lost their government support tonight, they would probably be dead inside of a week.
Yes. And so they won't lose it. Why? Because they started coming out in what was 2016 elections when they're talking about UBI.
Mm-hmm.
UBI to guys like you and me sounds like,
Yeah,
no, that's not
they've
a good
just
deal.
about
That's
got
not
the
a good.
population
Yeah.
primed for it.
Yeah. So guys like you and me, we'll be like, no, UBI, no. Earn your wage, earn your keep. But to these new generation, they're like, pay me?
Right.
Yes. Yes. Give me internet? Yes. And so it's set up.
So, all right, here's how I understand the sales pitch currently. And it was a while ago when I heard this, right? So, key parts of it could have changed at this
Okay.
point. But what is likely to be, I'll say likely to be presented to the public at some point in the near future, I'm not quite sure when, but I have a feeling it's probably going to be within the next 10 years. There is going to be a massive technological breakthrough that we're told that has occurred in the fields of artificial intelligence and robotics. That, long story short, the end result of it is, as human beings, we're not really going to have to work again. We're not going to have to toil. They have developed a way for the robots to generate the labor that keeps the economy going. And as a result, it's going to create such an excess, such a surplus in the system, that what it is going to allow them to do is return that surplus back to each and every one of us in the form of like a monthly payment to our bank account. They're not going to call it universal basic income because that's already been out there. People have already heard about that. They're going to call it something completely different, but that's exactly what it's going to be. And I'm sure there's also going to be, you're going to have to jump through hoops. You're going to have to give away something else in order to get this free money. But once you do that, you're signed up, you're signed in, and basically at that point, they've got you.
Well, here's how they do this. Okay. Here's how they make the biggest sales pitch. Like you just said, what is it that gets them to accept this? It's your right.
Correct.
You have a right to not work and labor. You have a right to play video games whenever you want. You have a right to watch YouTube videos all day long. You have a right to eat whatever you want. It's going to be a right. And say, because you have this right, we're now going to install a labor force, mechanical and robotic, that will take your places because you have this right. It's your right not to work and labor. Let the machines do it.
Yeah.
That's the
I mean,
sales
I'll even go on record and I'll say 10 years from now, by 2035, there will be UBI systems already in place and functional in probably many governments on the planet.
I'd say within the next,
Well, that's why I'm pushing it out 10 years. I'm giving myself a little extra because the whole back half of this decade looks really fucking dirty. And I'm not too terribly sure how a lot of folks are going to recover from that.
Well, I didn't listen to the interview, but I do want to go back over it. And the Independent Media Alliance with Ryan Christian and guys like Steve from the AM Wake Up and Jason Burmis and Catherine Austin Fitz. And they did a show tonight where Catherine was talking about the digital enslavement system of currency and IDs. So I want to go back and listen to that, but she's got a lot of good information about this digital system they're trying to create. Okay. And I think that they're doing this now. So for me, in my opinion, I think one of the things that's going to go, because this is something was said in interviews before a couple years ago, is that digital currency, fiat currency, is going to go away in 2025. Okay, sometime this year, and we're going to a digital system. We're already doing that stuff right now. Paying for the credit cards and stuff. So people are going to accept
Yeah,
it.
we've been doing digital money for
Yeah.
a while.
So
Decades.
once they got this in place, 2030 is when they want to have like these smart city setups, these
Uh-huh.
little places, like, so they
Yeah,
got to get
2030 is when they roll
yeah.
out the new economy.
So they got to get they we only got 5 years for them to get to this place where they're trying to get to. So we're going to see in these next several years big, big changes, and we all need to be ready for it. I'm trying to prepare myself to be ready for one day
Mhm.
that they say, "Hey, man, you need to come in and scan your eyeballs if you want to still receive your retirement, right?" And I'll be like, "All right, what do I do? What do I do at that point?
Hmm.
I got to make a decision." And I'm preparing myself right now to where be like, "Hey, man, I can sustain
I
myself.
don't, you know
Go
what?
fuck yourself."
Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing with that. Um, because that's not typically how, in my experience, that's not typically how they get you, right?
Oh,
It's always more subtle than that, right? It's
mm,
always
okay.
when you come to them because you have a problem with something. Like, say, let's take the example of that Social Security, right? Because I'm sure that's everybody's probably freaked out about their fucking Social Security at this point. Um, it's going to be more a thing like where one time your payment amount is wrong. And if you're still able to call them up, you call them up and they're like, "Oh, we can fix it. But we need you to come into the office. It's not something that we can do over the phone."
Mm,
And you're like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So you set an appointment probably. You go in, and then once you're in there, they're like, "Okay, well, we've got everything taken care of. There's just one last thing that we need to do because of the new regulations that have been installed by blah 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 blah. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's just going to be a line of bullshit in order for you to give up your biometric data."
yeah,
That's how they're going to do it. It's always fucking smoke and mirrors. It's always sleight of hand. It's
yeah.
always they wait for you to come to them. And it's like, aha, now we've got them on the hook.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I've been through the shit enough times to know how it works.
yep,
But there's everything that's going on right now is part of the marketing campaign.
yeah,
You know, all the crazy fluctuations with the market, all of that shit.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's all sleight of hand. I mean, they're showing us something, but they're preparing for something else. And however that turns out, and again, I could be wrong, but I think the digital system is going to get established this year. Um, and then from there, it's the biometric data and all the kind of stuff is going to really take off, because they've been pushing this stuff in the media,
Mhm.
lately, about real IDs and stuff like that. And it's been in the talks, like Chris Jones saying, in order for, after like May something, that if you want to fly, you have to have a real ID. But the
Yeah,
catch
yeah,
is that it's optional. But they don't tell you that in the commercial, right? So everyone thinks, "Oh, I got to get a real ID." So they're already trying to gather this stuff.
oh,
They're doing this really rapidly.
they've been gathering it. One of the stories that I didn't get a chance to get to tonight, but it is in the replay links for anyone who wants to go and read it themselves. It's from reclaimthenet.org, and the headline is National Institutes of Health to build massive health data platform linking health records, genomic profiles, and smartwatch data for medical research. And this is actually something that we were talking about on Liberty Radio 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. They have been in the process of unsiloing the health data in your private health records so that they could start feeding it to these systems. And again, they're going to present it to everybody. We're doing this for your benefit. We're trying to stop disease. We're trying to cure cancer. We're trying to cure COVID, probably, because I'm sure there's still people that are terrified of COVID at this point. But again, it's all this stuff has been in the works. I mean, shit, we were covering sales of these private healthcare data processing companies as the consolidation was happening in real time. And now they finally come out, NIH is going to be overseeing all of this. So obviously you're going to be able to trust them. It's your government, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah, your health data, your genes, the data on your genes, and all the shit from the smartwatch that you've been wearing for how long? Some of us at least 10 years. I got my first smartwatch in 2016.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I had 3 of them. I haven't had one for many years.
What you're talking about, Crow 777 did a really good interview or a really good podcast this last Wednesday. And I think the title of it is called like, You Are the Project, You Are the Product, Data Boy. It's called You Are the Product, Data Boy, right? Same, but like when we sign up for these things, we're the product. When it's free and it says, it's like, well, where's the payment? It's you're the product, right? So but anyways, they start talking about, and I didn't really know this, but there was a guy named Mark Klein back in like 2003. He had got wind of some of these NAS programs, called Stellar Wind, and that he worked for AT&T company, and AT&T company was giving all the data to the NSA. And he found a secret room or something, and he exposed that
I know
room.
who you're talking about.
Mark Klein, and they go on to talk about like these programs that we all know Snowden, and Snowden, disclosing the PRISM program, but there was all these other programs that they still had going on. Stellar Wind, there was another program too. I forget what it was called, but they had these programs going on that didn't get highlighted, and that's what Mark Klein was trying to expose. So when WikiLeaks came out and went with Chelsea Manning about the data and stuff and how they're stealing your data, and then the whole thing with Eric Snowden, it's almost like they want to get that information out there, but the story about Mark Klein and what he exposed, that isn't known.
Well, yeah, because again, the whole Snowden thing was a classic limited hangout.
Limited hangout, yes.
Yeah, it was a limited hangout. It was also misdirection. Look at this, don't look at that.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're still using Snowden in that capacity to this very day. And don't even get me fucking started on Glenn Greenwald, for crying out loud. Holy shit. I don't understand how anybody watches him. He's one of the most boring human beings I've ever seen in my entire life to begin with. Not to mention the fact that he's been lying to his audience since the very beginning.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. Sorry, I get very passionate about my media personalities.
No, I understand, man. I mean, I used to believe in Sean Hannity. I used to watch Sean Hannity's show. Be like, oh, Sean Hannity's awesome. So yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I mean, I never watched Glenn Greenwald, but I look at him now, and what he has become, Twitter talking head that he is, which again, don't get me started on Twitter culture, but, I really don't understand. And I guess it stems from the fact that kind of going back to all the way back to the beginning, where most people don't have time to invest in really analyzing this stuff, but it still just baffles me at how people will stare at a talking head on a screen and just like zone out and allow themselves to be programmed by whatever is going to fall out of that mouth.
Yeah. Yes.
And just go right along with it. Like
Yeah.
never verify anything whatsoever. Just create anything you want out of whole cloth and give it to them, and they'll eat it right up.
Yeah.
And defend it to their dying breath at the same time.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to again, I'm going to speak for myself, coming from Christianity. Now, this goes back to, again, what we were talking about as far as the Bible that we have as a canonical text. Okay. Now, what most Christians don't know is the Bible has been manipulated so many times over the centuries that the canonical text of the reading is not the true record. Okay. So what happened out of that was what were called interpolations of Paul. Okay. And one of those things was Christians, and this is the biggest problem with the United States, is that Christians, they believe that there's a verse in the Bible in Romans chapter 13 where it talks about how we are supposed to reverend and honor the rulers that are set above us because they are ordained by God. Whether the good or bad, you got to honor them because they've been ordained by God. Okay, so there's the trap. Okay, where hey, let's put this in there, and then all Christians that will believe that you have to honor your superiors. So if you're going to tell me that Joe Biden, with no brain, pedophile, sniffing little girls and whatever else is into, swimming naked, okay, you're going to tell me that God ordained
trying to
that
eat
guy to rule?
babies
Yeah, trying to eat
on the White House lawn.
You're going to tell me that God ordained that guy to rule over us? No. Logically, something is wrong with that text. Either Paul was wrong, or that is what is called an interpolation. It was inserted there after the fact so that they could entrap the masses. These are the little things that they do. And this is how they enslaved us, because we believe that.
Yeah, because is that the passage that people always reference when they're saying that the Bible tells you to honor the government?
One of them, yes. That's one of them. Yep. That's the main one.
Yeah, which is like
who put that there? Who put that there?
It stands as such a stark contradiction, to a lot of the rest of the text. It's like, what?
Yeah. It completely contradicts when Jesus says, "This is not my kingdom." He's talking about the way he's like, "This is not my kingdom." He's telling them right there, like, this system that they've been put upon us with this, president and pope and all this other kind of nonsense. He's like, that's not the kingdom. Okay. But Christians, because of that Bible verse, that's what they believe.
I mean, belief is a hell of a drug.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I like in Crow 777's opening, he says, belief is the enemy of knowing. If you believe something, you won't know it. You can't know it. You don't want to know it.
Well, yeah, because belief is a placeholder for knowledge. If you don't know something, your only option is to either believe it or not believe it.
Yeah,
because you can't prove it.
And that's why it said in the inscription on the top of the doorway for the Oracle of Delphi, and it was also in the Matrix movie when Neo goes to see the Oracle, know thyself.
That's right.
That's what it says.
Best advice you could ever give anyone, ever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, while we got just a little bit of time left, let's do something silly. Because we had a couple of interesting milestones occur this week, and I'm not talking about New Jersey burning to the ground. That's been a long time coming. So number one is that this week, I believe I don't know if it was this week or this month. Yeah, it was this month, April. April actually marks the 50th anniversary of Bill Gates stealing the code from IBM that we now call Windows.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody knew that or not, but Windows is officially 50 years old this month.
All right.
Or maybe, I guess it's maybe unofficially, because the actual official narrative isn't that that he stole it, that he built it in his parents' garage or some bullshit. So we have that. And then we also had the curious story of the departure of Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum. It struck me as very odd Monday morning. I was like, okay, Pope's dead, and Klaus steps down. Why do these two events coinciding with one another set off my fucking spidey sense? Why? Are we about to go into the next phase of the agenda? Is that what these things are actually pointing to? Because I know everybody's all tied up into the former CEO of Nestle, who says that water is not a human right for anyone except him, apparently. Everybody's all caught up in that shit and his bionic eye or whatever the fuck is wrong with it. But is this one of those transition points that they point to in the various white papers and war games where we have a changing of the guard, where the old guard steps down and the new guard takes over? Is that what we're witnessing here?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. It seems kind of hard to argue against, because I know that Klaus Schwab was already intending to step down, right? Like, I think he'd made an announcement at the beginning of the year, like at the end of the year, I'm going to retire and all of that.
Yeah.
But then now we have what occurred on Monday, where the board came to him and asked for his resignation because of misappropriation of funds, embezzlement, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't think it really even would have mattered what the accusations were, right? They come to him early and be like, we need you to step out now.
Yeah. Well, just think about this. So now I do believe, now what you said about, is this the moving into the next phase?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think in the next phase of maybe the big broad plans, but what I will say is that these events that just happened, right? Recently, this is the game plan, because they shake things up. The plan's still moving on, but they just shake things up, kind of like when you get an hourglass and it's got like the glitter inside and you shake it up. Yeah, snow globe, and it starts to settle, and before it settles again, you shake it up, and boom, it gets brought back up to the surface. They're just priming us. They're just like shaking things up, bring it to the surface, shaking things up, bring it to the surface, because they never want us to settle down and get founded. Because when we do, then that's when we'll realize what's going on.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. The other thing that bothers me about it, though, is the very public nature of it. Like, it's not just like it wasn't just the independent media that was talking about it on Monday. All right. It was front page news on every news platform. Like, it was plastered all over the place. That doesn't happen by accident, especially when we're talking about the mainstream.
Yeah.
So they wanted us to know this for some specific reason, possibly for multiple reasons.
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure out what those reasons are.
Well, here's something to think about. Now, within the occult, it's known as what they call the revelation of the method, where they can just reveal their hand because the people are so bought up they won't even see it. And now this ties into that's an occultic kind of principle or something that the occultists know, right? Now, let's tie this into what is accredited to William Casey. And what did he say? We'll know our operation is complete when the American public believes that everything they see is a lie, right?
Yep.
That's what. So
Nothing the American public believes is true.
sure. So this is
We're there. Mission accomplished.
That's based off of the revelation of the method. Everything that the American public is seeing is a lie, so they can just reveal their hand. It's out there in the open, but the American public can't see it because it's the revelation of the method. You're so damn done. You're so that you can't see truth. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean they don't even have to hide anything with like allegory anymore. They can literally be explicit with what they're doing, and people are still none the wiser. It's mind blowing, dude. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
You know what we never got around to talking about tonight?
What was that?
Virginia Giuffre.
Okay, yeah.
She's dead, man. She's gone. Apparently, according to her family, committed suicide.
Yes.
Which I don't know if I necessarily believe.
No, yeah. Yeah.
It kind of seems like the week for it to happen, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess, and for me, it's just cannon fodder. Cannon fodder. Like they're just shooting stuff up, and it's just fodder. Because I when I hear stories like this, alarming. It's wow, but at the same time, I'm just like, yeah, they're just giving this to us. I'm sitting back in the very back seat, waiting for this thing to get revealed. Like I'm watching the show. I'm like, hey, I understand it. I understand the show. I'm waiting for the roof to blow off. So
I think we're about to get some pyrotechnics. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the nature of it is going to be. I'm not sure what sectors it's going to be in. But I think there are more shocks coming. And I don't think they're even necessarily as a result of all the monkey shines that's been going on with the economy lately. Which, again, looking at that from just the standpoint of an individual having to find their way through it, it's absolutely ridiculous. How can anybody at this point think that the markets aren't rigged?
Right.
Like, how does anybody believe that any of this shit is legitimate anymore? I have no clue whatsoever. But it just seems like I'm seeing a lot of parallels between now and the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020. Yeah. As far as the way that information is being presented to the public, as far as how they are packaging a lot of the events that are taking place, like what you're saying with the shooting that happened at Florida State, where the people who can actually see that it's just a production and not something that is actually happening or happened in real life, that it was scripted. These people are apparently just actors.
Yeah.
Like there's gotta come a point, and I think this is why things are directed the way that they are from the social engineering standpoint. They move the pieces into place on the playing board where they figure that they're going to have the most impact if something goes wrong. And then they just sit back and wait for something to go wrong so that they can then capitalize on the crisis. Because I think we're finally at that point now where we're completely flooded with propaganda. Most people can't tell up from down at this point. They just want out. They're stretched thin. economically, they're stretched thin psychologically, they're stretched thin emotionally. I think at this point, it's just a matter of time until somebody pops in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's just going to be a snowball effect from there. Oh, you're muted.
So about that, I was going to say this. Think about what you're saying, and the machine. The machine works once you've primed it. You got to prime it. You got to pump, build that pressure, prime, and then when the priming's when you got it all primed, then you hit the start button, and then boom, it goes.
You just let
So
it go.
You're saying, yeah. So they've been priming us. We're primed right now, and soon we're close. They're gonna let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I keep getting the feeling that, and when I say feeling, what I'm talking about is intuition, right? I keep getting the feeling that there is going to be something this summer, but yeah, I don't get anything more than that. Like it's like a vague notion that there's going to be something this summer. And here's the crazy thing about it, because this is the same type of deal where, like, right before I left Acapulco, I kept getting a really bad feeling. Like on a daily basis, I kept getting a really bad feeling. And then 2 weeks after I leave Acapulco, it gets leveled by a Category 5 hurricane, right? I don't know if this is something that's like personal to me or is going to affect like just my local community or the state of Texas or the United States or the entire, I don't know. All I know is I'm getting just a not great feeling about this summer for some reason. And I have no fucking idea why.
Yeah. Well, summer is just a few months away, and I think we're ready for it. Um, you know, these intuitions that you have, I think that people kind of have, like, um, everyone's feeling this. Things are coming to a head, but I think that we're on the right path to where when it does, I'm aware. I see the conditions, and I can forecast that something's coming. So we prepare. We can see the conditions, and we can forecast. And just many people just can't see the conditions. They're trying to forecast in the wrong direction. They're trying to forecast for college tuition. They're trying to forecast for, college diplomas. They're trying to forecast in having a big car and a Tesla with 2 kids. Like, that's what they're trying to forecast for.
Right. Or a big IRA.
They're not forecasting for what's the situation, so yeah.
No, and that's always the point, isn't it? To catch the largest amount of people completely off guard as possible.
Yeah.
Because that's when people are the most vulnerable, is when they're caught in a confused state and don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
It's how many times have we seen that through history? We saw it play out the entire year of 2020.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you that the vast majority of people that went through that experience didn't learn a damn thing from it.
Yeah.
Not one. Like the more I look at this thing, the more I start to believe that we are the exception. And that again, this is something that I've gone back and forth on the entire time, is that either we're bigger than we think we are or we're smaller than we think we are. And that might even be just another effect of the propaganda, right?
Yeah.
Because the divisions between individuals are now so numerous that trying to find any real commonality with anybody else is going to be a fool's errand.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what is going to come of the next major shock.
Yeah.
But like I say, it seems like it's getting close.
Which consider this, because I want to get your after this. I want to get your opinion on this. Is that my son asked me one time? It was probably like last year. Okay. He asked me, he said, "Hey, Papa," when I was telling him, all this conspiracy stuff and history stuff, he said, "Hey," and he asked me a really in-depth question. He's like, "Would you rather live now or back in those days when you didn't know this stuff?" And I said, "You know what? I'd rather live now because now I can see things. Would I have been happy back in the 40s and 50s thinking that we're doing the great thing and we're winning the war and all this good feeling of, but not knowing the true history behind those wars and how we
Mm.
got there? I would rather know now because I'd rather know." And so, however long I live, hopefully I live to be 100. We're the same age, Driz. We were born the same year, so we're half our lifetime supposedly. Like,
Oh God,
uh,
don't tell me
I
that.
want I want to see I want to see some cool stuff, man. Like, I'm watching the show. I want to see it, dude. I want to see these things go down. I want to see I want to see things go down.
I
I
do
want to
too.
see
I do too,
corruption
actually.
brought to its knees. And as
I
long as I can
didn't
see
want
that.
to. Yeah, I didn't want to for the longest time. Like
Mm,
I was hoping and praying. 'Cause, yeah, I knew about the Agenda 21 shit uh, shortly after they started putting the plans together after the
yeah,
Rio summit. But
yeah,
I never figured that I was going to live long enough to see any of it. I always thought I would be
yeah.
dead by age 50. I didn't think I was going to make it this far.
All right.
But apparently now I do get to witness some of it. So I absolutely,
Congratulations.
absolutely, yeah, sure, thanks. Um, absolutely, I want to see it. I want to watch it all go down. There's no other time in history that I would rather live in than this one right now.
Yeah.
We have, as far as we know, we have more advantages now as far as being able to record this stuff
Yes.
and pass
Yeah.
it down to future generations
Yeah.
than what we've ever been capable of doing before.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that I hope human beings continue to do is pass these stories down from generation to generation, because
Yeah.
if we lose that tradition, then we really are lost. And I
Yes.
know if Yona was here, he would agree with me, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, he's not here tonight. He's still in the hospital.
Yeah.
But hopefully, he will be out soon. I don't know if I told everyone on the broadcast tonight or not. Yona is not going to require surgery for his broken
Yeah.
vertebra, which is a very, very good sign. He's just waiting to speak to a particular specialist, and then they're probably going to throw him out on his ass because everybody knows Yona's poor. So they're not going to get much more money out of him. But that is where we are going to have to leave it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in once again. We'll be back on Tuesday night to do it to your ear holes once again. Get your requests in now. The playlist might fill up before you know it. Good night, everybody.